Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football, diving into what is one of the bigger storylines in the college football landscape heading into the 2023 season, and that's the Georgia quarterback battle that's happening in Athens. And I don't even know if you call it a battle. I mean, from what I've read in the spring practice notes, what I watched in the spring game, Carson Beck seems to be a guy that is going to take Georgia to another level on the offensive side of the ball. And I kind of want to dive into why I'm so high on Carson Beck, and more importantly, why I'm so high on Carson Beck in this Georgia offense, because you take a look at the ceiling of what this Georgia offense can be. I mean, you can see a way where this offense takes even another step from what it was last year under Stetson Bennett. A very exciting time to be a Bulldogs fan. And I think a lot of the national media buzz around this Georgia quarterback situation is just trying to create storylines and in some way poke a hole in this Georgia team heading into 2023. And even as a Michigan fan, like, the reason I was going and checking out the Georgia spring game was, hey, maybe the quarterback play takes a step back. Maybe some other teams have a chance to win a national championship. I'll say this right now. Carson Beck looks to be that guy. And you take a look at what's surrounding him. This Georgia offense has a chance to be extremely special in 2023. Now, before we get into it, just want to say thank you to you guys. It's been a blast talking Georgia football on the recruiting trail this summer. We have some more updates coming soon. KJ Bolden, Nate Frazier committing later this weekend. Now I'm excited to talk about some Georgia football and what we're going to see in 2023. So for those who've been rocking with the boys, can't thank you guys enough. If you enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And let's get into this Georgia offense under Carson Beck in 2023. And I want to just take us to what Carson Beck is going to be surrounded by. One, love Carson Beck's mentality, right? Comes in that 2020 class. You have Stetson Bennett, a former walk-on, starting over you. You bring in Brock Vandergriff in that 2021 class. In a lot of scenarios, in a lot of worlds across college football, Carson Beck is no longer with the Georgia Bulldogs, right? He hits the transfer portal, goes and tries to find a place that he can start sooner, get more reps sooner. Carson Beck staying the course, staying with this program. It's hard not to root for this kid heading into 2023. And getting to why I think he's going to be so successful in this Georgia offense, I want to talk first about what you saw from Carson Beck during the spring game. Watch that game a couple of times. The first thing Kirby Smart, Mike Bobo, and this offensive staff are going to be looking for in a quarterback, very similar from that Nick Saban coaching tree, is, hey, can you play winning football? Do you look in command of this offense? Carson Beck looked about as in command of an offense as you can look in a spring game, right? 18 to 22, 231 passing yards, 1 touchdown. And I'm not even concerned about the stats. I'm just talking about from what I saw watching that spring game. The ball was coming out quickly, it was coming out on time, and it was coming out accurately. I mean, he was going through his progressions, knew when to check it down. It's really hard to watch that spring game and get even any sense of a feeling that Carson Beck is not the quarterback one in this offense. Now, the second reason I'm so high on Carson Beck, and this is the biggest reason I think, is you take a look at what this Georgia offense is around a guy like Carson Beck. Now, don't get it twisted. Carson Beck's been here for a couple of years now. That being said, he's a first-year starter. And I couldn't think of a better situation for a first-year starter to come into than what this Georgia offense looks like. And I want to start up front. I know Michigan has won the Joe Moore Award the last 2 years. I think it's very hard to argue that Georgia's offensive line hasn't been the best in the country the last 2 years. And you take a look at the group they'll have this year, I think this might be the best Georgia offensive line we've seen in the last couple of years, right? You take a look at the inside, a guy like Cedric Van Pran would have been a day 2 pick, arguably even a top 50 pick in the NFL draft in 2023 had he declared. Tate Ratledge, Xavier Truss, those 3 guys will be playing on Sundays in less than 12 months from now. And then you take a look at the tackles. Right tackle Amarius Mims might be a top 15 pick in the NFL draft in a couple months. A guy in Ernest Green, who's a young cat, Austin Blassie kind of adding a little bit more experience. I trust that whoever's playing that tackle spot is going to look phenomenal. I'll say this right now, that Georgia offensive line going up against the best defensive line they'll see all year in that spring game, which is Georgia's defensive line. They looked absolutely phenomenal. Carson Beck had a lot of clean pockets to throw from. This Georgia offensive line is going to be a dominant group in 2023. And on top of that, what is a quarterback's best friend? Not only an offensive line that can protect you and give you clean pockets to throw from, but an offensive line that can get it going in the run game, because a quarterback's best friend is a strong run game where you can work play action. You take a look at what this running back room could be and just what this running back game could be. Kendall Milton, Dejon Edwards, you got a plethora of running backs. Kendall Milton, by the way, a guy that whenever I see him play, and I know he's battled some injuries, always so impressed with what Kendall Milton brings to the table. He might be one of the best running backs, not only in the SEC, but the country. You have Dejon Edwards, too, who is also a very quality running back. Hard to see this running game behind an elite offensive line not be one of the best groups in the country. And then let's get to the pass catchers. And this is another thing that I always kind of find funny is that's probably the biggest knock on this Georgia team is do they have the talent in the pass catcher room to win another national title? And they act like Brock Bowers doesn't exist. I know he's not listed as a wide receiver, but you take a look at pass catchers in the country. I'm probably only taking Marvin Harrison Jr. over Brock Bowers in terms of the best pass catchers in the country. Brock Bowers, I think, legitimately is one of the most special tight ends that we've seen in the last 20 years. And having a good tight end that can work the middle of the field, that can create separation early, is going to be massive for Carson Beck. And Brock Bowers heading into year 3, truly going to be a massive weapon. And you talk about guys like Ladd McConkey, who happy to finally see him getting the credit he deserves. That's another guy that is going to make Carson Beck's job so much easier. You talk about a guy in Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey who know how to create separation, know how to find the throwing lanes. Those two guys are some of the best in the country at that. That's going to be so beneficial for Carson Beck. And then diving even more deep into this pass catcher room, Dominic Lovett, one of the best wide receivers in the SEC last year, coming in from Missouri, another guy that can work that slot really well, create separation. He torched Georgia last year. And I was not surprised when and Georgia does not take many guys from the transfer portal. I was not surprised when Kirby Smart saw Dominic Lovett name in the transfer portal. That wrapped up pretty quick. Kirby Smart got a good look at Dominic Lovett against that Missouri game and said, hey, we need that kind of wide receiver on our team. So you add another massive playmaker in Dominic Lovett, Ra Thomas coming from Mississippi State. Then you even get to some of the guys that are in the 2 and 3 deep. Arian Smith, if he can stay healthy, I don't know if you have a better deep threat in the country in terms of absolute vertical speed. Marcus Rosemy-Jack Saint, another really good-looking wide receiver. And then some of you, even the true freshmen, guys like Tyler Williams, a guy that I know Georgia fans are really excited about. Okay, the wide receiver room might not be the best unit on that team. It's still one of the best units in the country in terms of pass catcher groups. And then you're not even talking about guys like Oscar Delp or even true freshman Lucky Lawson or Lawson Lucky, who's come. And again, we've kind of highlighted him during our freshman spotlight series as another playmaker. For the Georgia Bulldogs, there's been a lot of talk about this offense and can it take strides or can it be as good as it was in 2022, losing guys like Stetson Bennett, losing guys like Kenny McIntosh? It is, in my mind, looking at this team, having watched Carson Beck in the spring game, I think it's awfully hard to find a reason why this group won't be extremely good in 2023. Now, that's not even looking at the defense. I just kind of wanted to take a deep dive into the offense, talk about what I've seen from Carson Beck. It doesn't look like the quarterback play is going to be a problem for the Georgia Bulldogs in 2023. And on top of that offense, it's still going to be one of the better units in the country. The national media likes to talk about Georgia potentially taking a step back on offense. From what I've seen and from what I've read in spring practice, that's awfully hard to see. Want to end it on that. Appreciate you guys rocking with the boys as usual. And if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We're going to be talking this Georgia team a lot as we head into the college football season. Appreciate y'all. Talk to y'all later.